Silkies. I'm doing a video response to a Goth podcast by Cemetery Confessions. Many of you have probably heard of them, and I do have notes. I just finished listening to their podcast, and I had a few things that I want to respond to. Of course, I cannot respond to everything because it was over an hour long with multiple Goth people talking together about their experiences and everything. Okay, so I'm going to be occasionally looking down at my notes because my memory is great. Okay, so basically, Cemetery Confessions has a pretty decent following. I just discovered them on Facebook. I believe I'm following one of the guys that did the podcast, and they sent me an invite to the page. And I'm not sure if I heard of them in the past before. I think I may have, knowing how long I've been in the scene. But their specific topic that they were going over was about being a person of color in the goth scene. And that's not the exact title, but I will leave a link down to the podcast below in the description. And if you want to check out the podcast first before listening to my video, I definitely recommend it. But I'm mostly just going over things that are kind of like general topics that they were going over and just expressing my thoughts on them. Okay, so I am doing this over my phone. I will try my best to do this as short as possible, but have a lot of detailed feedback on what I wanted to talk about. And it's okay if you don't agree with my perspective. Everyone has their own opinion. Like, I don't agree with everything that I've heard, but I do respect the podcast. I'm really glad that Cemetery Confessions did it. They're using their platform to get the word out. And these are topics that we need to talk about in the scene. As a person of color or a non-person of color, especially because this type of representation for us, the issues that we go through, is really important to understand. And hopefully it gets the issue resolved, you know, so the scene can be more comfortable for everybody. Okay, starting off, I wanted to say that I recognize a couple of the people on there, not from their voice alone, because I didn't actually talk to them. One was a drummer. I've heard of him. So the drummer actually seen when I first started going out in the scene, when I started my modeling around that time, and I saw him with Ego Likeness, and I think maybe another band, I'm not sure, because I didn't always get to see the goth bands play, so, but I've seen him around, so, but anyway, I was specifically talking about him because he shared a story that was actually pretty cringy for me, not because he was sharing it or because it was him, but what happened to him was really ridiculous, you know, and it shouldn't happen. There were other people I recognize. I think one DJ called Mouse. I've heard that name before, but I don't think I actually can put a face to it. And one black goth chick who I followed at some point, or followed me. So I do recognize her. I think she got, when she first was getting known, it was back on YouTube, and I think she had made a video about how hard it was for her being black and goth in the scene, and it made a lot of people upset because a lot of people saw that video, both goth and non-goth, and it was just really hard to watch. And I do remember that video about her. Not saying that video defines her, because she's gotten further from that since then, but like she said in the podcast, a lot of who she is from like trauma and hurt and all that, and I understand that. I completely do. So with the drummer, he was saying how he had an experience not from the goth scene. I guess he said he was shielded from a lot of it, of the issues within the goth scene, because I guess he had the privilege of being a musician. So you kind of get more privilege, and I can understand that because people want music, they want entertainment, and if you have like a position of anything within the goth scene, you're kind of treated a little bit differently versus if you're just, you know, you're goth alternative, you're not a public figure or whatever. So, let's see, his story where he was with a band and he was traveling and he had to like be aware of his surroundings because they were like Nazis where he was, and his band members at that time were worried about him, and I'm just like, that's ridiculous. You're a musician, you're traveling, and you have to worry about things like that. You can't walk down the street, and that's how it is being a black man, and not just goth, is mostly because of his skin color. They probably didn't care too much about the goth thing, from what I was hearing, but still, that's just another reason to cause problems. And luckily, nothing happened to him, but he's more aware of his surroundings because of that. And that's actually something that I really should listen to, being a black woman as goth. And sometimes when I'm out, I'm oblivious. I'm not thinking about, oh, hey, I'm this, you know, oh, my skin color bothers people, unless I'm made to feel that way. Because sometimes you walk into a place and you get that vibe, and I have been in a place like that before, and it caused a lot of problems, and I was in a relationship at that time. But I'm not going to go into that. It just didn't turn out really pretty. I didn't get hurt, but still, the person I was with got into a fight with some racist people, so I'm not going to go into that. That's something for story time. Okay, so I'm trying to cover everything they said that I wrote notes on and trying to remember. They said people of color are still not predominantly showcased. And I think what they're talking about is like for merchandise and stuff like that, where we're still like promotions and for goth stuff, we're still not quite there yet. I've seen stuff with people of color here and there. We're getting better, but we're not quite there, because when they were saying like new faces enter the scene, they're still seeing the same representation over and over: pale skin, skinny, and young, and you know, the typical thing you expect when you hear goth girl, goth guy. I think that still needs to happen more. I think I've seen posts where it's being addressed, but it's still kind of like, are people doing it because they feel like they should do it, or they're just trying to show everyone that, you know, hey, we're not like them, here's this? Are they doing it because they want to do it? I think that's what a lot of us want. Do it because you want to, but, you know, do it for the right reasons, not to just make yourself look better. Just do it because it's needed. You feel like it's right, you know? So they were talking quite a bit about being black and goth is an issue. You're goth, but you're also black, and it's hard because you got two separate issues there, or issues. You're already, in a way, discriminated for already being black in the mainstream society, and then at the same time, when you throw goth into it, it just kind of like, it kind of makes it worse, and it really shouldn't. It's like you're expected to be a certain way already, just being just black or a person of color, and then just like, if you're not with the stereotype, if you're not how you're supposed to be, then you're already like kind of othering yourself on top of othering yourself, if that makes sense. And that's something I agree with. Okay, so bigotry and sexism is predominantly in mainstream stuff. That's something that popped up, and I believe I disagreed with this because I don't think it's just with that. Yeah, you see it a lot in mainstream culture, a lot of bigotry, sexism, of course with, you know, a larger group, so you're gonna have that there. But I believe that it's also in the goth culture, sorry. I don't think it's just mainstream. I mean, maybe they haven't seen it that much, but I still think it exists. Probably not on a greater scale, but it's still there. And you know it's still there, because like being a woman and a person of color, I know it's there. So that's something I disagreed with. Another thing they were talking about is assimilation and basically blackness and being goth. Pressure to be like basically stereotypical versus out of the box, and how it is a type of segregation, which it is. you already have like the whole segregation thing. Like they refer to the civil rights movement, and they were saying like we fought so hard to basically have rights just like everybody else, and just want to do things like everybody else without being judged for it. And then we have this part where, okay, so we fought for that, and now we can't be different. Now that's the issue. And it's like, we fought for our rights, but why can't we be who we are just like you fought for? And that's basically that's the rundown of what they were saying. And I'm just like, whoa, that hit home. That is so true. Like, there's no lie in that. And I didn't think about it that way. Like, it is a type of segregation. Like, why segregate ourselves? Why can't we just be one community? Why can't we just be accepting of people of color who are different, quirky and weird, you know? The list goes on. Why can't we be accepting of that? And that's an issue I see so much in pro-black groups on online, Facebook, whatever, where someone is being ridiculed for being different, whether it be the person's trans, gay, just weird, just not normal for being a person of color. And it's like, it shouldn't be like that. We should have support, because we're already having like issues just being who we are because of skin color. So it's important that we have this acceptance within our community, because it just feels like we're othered on top of being othered, you know? And people who are non-goth have brought this up before, and it is an issue. It's something that needs to be addressed. So another part I was talking about is POC goths and people saying they're inspired by their confidence. They're basically talking about that, and I've had that happen to me too, not just from people of color, just other people say I inspire them, my confidence of being who I am, whatever. And I think that's something that's awesome. I think more people should inspire people. And me, I'm not trying to inspire people, but it just happens, and I'm glad I do, and I'm glad they do. And just be yourself. That's the message there. And let's see. They mentioned that being a person of color, you have to work twice as hard to prove that you're something, especially goth. And boy, do I know that. Sometimes I don't want to wear all black. I'll wear something like this. And if I'm not, how am I singing as goth? If I'm not wearing a bunch of spikes and leather or whatever, I'm not really seen as goth. And it just seems like it's a lot of work. And even within the community, I've had haters say like, oh, she doesn't represent black goths. And for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm black and I'm goth. I'm not trying to represent anybody but myself, but hey, I do. I'm one of those people that represents the whole community. They were saying that being quirky and being a non-person of color is more accepted than being a person of color who's quirky, because it's just like the whole assimilation thing. If you're not a certain way, if you're not that peaceful black person who doesn't, you know, speak their mind, if you're something that's different from that, you're more likely to get hurt, attacked, arrested, whatever, just for being you. And I thought that was a really harsh truth, and it's damn true. And they were talking about 3 communities that we basically have to balance in a way. The mainstream white and black communities, and also the goth communities. And I can see that, honestly. I didn't think about separating it like that, but it's kind of like, you gotta deal with our community, the black community, how the white community perceives us, whether they say we're cool or we should stay how the stereotypes are. And also the goth community. Don't quite fit in. Like, some people might fit in sometimes, but you're not really that pale person, that stereotypical goth. It's kind of tough to fit in. They mentioned something about inclusive goth promoters. Okay, this is something that was an issue for me as a model when I first started out. That's why I kind of like stopped. People who don't include, when they do like cast for like goth stuff, for example, whether they're in the goth community or not, they don't normally go for people of color. I'm not saying there aren't people out there who don't. I'm not saying there are people out there who exclude people of color, but if they do, they're kind of like grabbing whatever. They're just kind of like, oh, they're black, okay, just throw them in here, and just throw them in there. Is basically what they're saying, not including them because it should happen, or it's just kind of like their demand is more of the typical pale goth versus, okay, yeah, person of color, I'm good, or okay, you need the person of color, you guys are complaining, okay, let's just throw someone in there. That's that mentality that needs to go, because we should all be included. Diversity is important. We have diversity in our scene. They're mentioning female goth DJs, and I've seen mostly female goth DJs since I've been in the scene, the club scene, whatever. And I didn't realize that was an issue everywhere, because I thought it was a common thing. I rarely see male DJ where I went to clubs, so that's not something I'm going to touch up too much on. So that's something that they were talking about. I didn't know this, but there was a racist person in Comedy Christ. I should know this, but I didn't. And he moved to Aesthetic Perfection, and that just kind of blew my mind, and I'm not going to listen to them anymore. So just saying that right now, I didn't know about that. I like both of them before in the past. I've danced to them, so if you see me dancing or having them in the background, I didn't know. But that was years ago. And they were saying something I didn't just agree with. Afro goth is outside of goth, how it just seems like it's othered. And honestly, I think Afro goth is not an other thing. I think when you hashtag Afro goth or POC goth or whatever, it's not othering, it's creating a safe space and making it easier for people to find people like us. That's my opinion about it. They hated it. Most of them hated those kind of things, those kind of labels. That's your opinion, but I disagree, because I think it's a safe space. They mentioned something about the Killstar generation ruining goth. Some of those type of things that they sell, I think are cute, but I understand how they're portraying this image of goth that's not really goth in a way. And I'm so against being an elitist, it's not even funny. But I honestly see their point, because they're not diversifying it enough. If you had diversity in with their stuff, maybe it'll be a little bit better, but they don't. And I like a couple of the quotes they mentioned. I'm much happier being an asshole. Basically, Zach said that, and I was just like, yes, I'd rather be an asshole and speak my mind and be this open person than just be quiet and do what I'm expected to do. And that's why a lot of people don't like me, family included. Okay, and another person, the person who owns Cemetery Confession, said fuck politeness was in one of their rooms in their house. Because yeah, fuck politeness. If you see racism or any type of bigotry, don't sit there and be quiet. Say something about it. Stand up for them. Don't let those people think that it's okay to be fucking assholes like that. And okay, so the end of this is the recommendations. I've heard quite a bit of interesting people they mentioned on there, and I'm going to check them out, and you guys should definitely check them out. Check them out and definitely listen to the podcast. It's about an hour long, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And definitely leave your comments down below about what I've covered. Thanks for watching, Silkies. Like and subscribe for more videos. And don't forget to become a Patreon today and help support and help me get some new equipment, like a laptop, so I don't have to use my phone. Alright, thanks you guys for watching.